I've gathered up the materials that I think are going to work really well for the next project. I'm making a leaping hare. I need to start with the front leg. Everything else can build off of that then. So I'm going to use one of these spanners. Let's get on with it. Before I get into the voiceover for this one, I just wanted to point out that the irony of the fact I'm making a sculpture of a hare while I'm sat here looking like the Temu version of Jason Statham has not been lost on me. With this sculpture, there's going to be a repeating theme through the video where you just need to trust the process, and it'll be worth it. So stick with me and watch it come together. This first section of the sculpture, getting the shape roughed out in metal, is probably the most important to get right. But from an outside perspective, and by that I mean anyone who isn't in my brain, it just looks like a big old mess. But trust the process. It can often mean welding parts on and removing them a number of times before things look right. But because of the beauty of editing, you get to skip that part. I use lots of reference images that I can measure and scale from to make sure everything is in proportion. If you're interested in how I do that, drop a comment below to let me know, and if people are interested, I'll do a super simple video explaining how it's done. There will be a moment while you're watching this where it will click in your mind and you'll see what I see. Let me know what that moment is for you. I think it will be when the ears go on. The shape's starting to come together now. I've cut out a piece of card just to show you roughly what it kind of look like once the head's on. Big ears coming off the back of it. Just a rough guide to give a demonstration of how it'll look. Now most of the body on this is going to be mosaic scrap. So I need to cut up a loads of bits and pieces for that. Make some guides to come on the rest of the sculpture, just so I know where to follow to keep the right shape going forwards. Let's do it. With making the frames for the sculptures, I've changed over a little bit the way I do it. So I used to make everything from 6mm round bar, bend it in the vise with the vise just open slightly and gradually bend it. I've moved down to 4mm round bar, which is much easier to manipulate. So I need to make a curve like this. Now the jaws of the vise are a bit too thick to be able to get curves like that. So what I've done is just put together a really quick little tool. It's literally a piece of rebar and some thick bolts on it. Take the round bar, put it between the two, and use the bar as the leverage to just bend it round. This is the rough template for the head that I showed a minute ago. I've decided to try something a bit new with this one, so I've done a much more detailed, more accurate shape out of card. Something like that. What I'm going to do now is transfer this onto steel, cut it out, and I'm going to build the head around this template once it's out of steel. I could in theory use my CNC plasma cutter to cut the template out for the head, but for something like this that I'm never really going to need again, and with it being such a complex shape to design on the computer, I went with a trusty angle grinder. To create the majority of the head, I wanted to use spoons. They're really effective at filling out spaces that have lots of curves, and while I was doing it, I managed to capture a moment that I've never really been able to share before. When it was time to start on the eye, it all worked perfectly. Went to go and get a sphere out of the little tub. Next to it was a ring spanner. Now that sphere fits perfectly into there. Not only that, but the curve and the bend of that piece there fits perfectly into that gap and will weld against the back plate. So put that there, put the sphere in, and I've got an eye for it. That is where I keep ball bearings, metal spheres, that kind of thing. And then there is where the ring spanners are. Like 2 tubs over, and it just worked perfectly. So that is the majority of that head done. Ugly as hell at the moment, but trust the process, stick with it, everything's ugly until it's not. I'm going to leave the head for a minute and I'm going to work on filling in some of this mosaic scrap. Now for the back legs, you can see this section here is one half of the handle from some mole grips. Now this works absolutely perfectly. That is part of the grip part of the mole grips. Now if I put that on there, somewhere around there, it works perfectly as that thicker part of the thigh as it joins onto the body. I might need to bulk out a little bit more from there to sort of even everything out. But how nice is that? It just works perfectly.
Now it's time to do the mosaic scrap, by far the most time consuming part of the whole sculpture, but for you it's a mere 41-second time lapse, and I'm going to shut up so you can watch, and hopefully appreciate just how long this stuff takes. It's hours, by the way. Hours and hours and hours.
That's the body filled out with the mosaic scrap. I will go back through, tidy everything up a bit and fill in all the little gaps in between everywhere. What I'm going to work on next is the ears, just to make this shape come together, really bring it to life. Get some work done on the ears, get them done, and then finish off a bit more on the head. Let's do it.
I probably enjoyed this part of making the sculpture more than any other part. I think that's due to it just bringing the whole thing to life. It goes from this weird shaped thing to a hare as soon as the ears are finished. The way it transforms the shape of the head I just find amazing. I've done a lot of animal sculptures and the ears are always the thing that make it start to look right. The thing that can turn it from, what is this thing I'm making, to, I was on the right track, and it's okay, and I can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm 11 years into my journey of making sculptures, and the one thing I've really learned is that everything is ugly until it's not.
I said trust the process, didn't I? It's getting there, it's starting to look right now. I'm really happy with the ears, they're coming together really well. Now all these gaps in around the different spoons on the head, I like to fill them in. But there's a really good trick that I discovered for making sure that you definitely want to fill in an area with weld before you do it. Because obviously once you've filled it with weld, there's no going back. So get some blue tack or white tack, plasticine, something like that. And then in whatever area it is, just fill that area in with the blue tack, and then you can tell how that's definitely going to look once it's filled in with weld. And if you're happy with it, you can then go ahead and do it. The head's all but done now, really happy with how that's come out. Worked a little bit on the legs just to fill a bit out. I'm going to go right back through the body now on the mosaic scrap and fill in with all like M8, M6 nuts, some square nuts, that sort of thing, just to fill in all those gaps to make it really nice and smooth. After that, it's just finishing touches, a stand, and I'll show you it.
You might have heard me tell this little story before, so apologies if you have. I had a parents' evening in school once, and my English teacher said to my mum that Nick's a nice boy, but he's one of these lads that will do the bare minimum to get by and not get in trouble, but won't put any actual effort in. Now she was 100% correct, and it wasn't until I started making sculptures that I put that last bit of effort in. That's how I think about the final part, where I go back and fill in the little gaps in the mosaic scrap. It's good enough to call it done without, but it's not actually good enough. It looks so much better done this way.
hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a like, comment, subscribe. The more you engage with the video, the wider the audience it gets pushed to, so I can put more time into making the videos. See you in the next one.